In this video, we will derive the formula for Engel aggregation, okay, as promised in the earlier video. So basically, first we will take the budget constraint of a utility maximizing consumer. Okay, so what is the budget constraint of a utility maximizing consumer? We know that it is simply equal to price of X. Let us say the consumer is consuming two goods X and Y. The price of good X times units of good X plus price of Y times units of good Y. It should be equal to the total income of the consumer. We have a consumer who consumes two goods X and Y. M denotes the total income of the consumer. Px and Py denote the price of good X and Y. Okay, so for a utility maximizing consumer, this is the budget constraint as we have been using at quite often times. Okay, now second thing is, what will we do? We need to find out the Marshallian demand for good X and good Y. Okay, so let us say demand function for good X is being given by demand for good X. Demand for good X, we know it will be equal to demand for good X is simply a function of income and price, what we call the Marshallian demand for good X. Okay, demand function for good X will be a function of income and price. And similarly, let us say demand for good Y, we also call this uncompensated demand or ordinary demand function. That is, the demand function for good Y will be a function of, again, income and price, and let's denote it by price of X, here price of Y. Okay, we know that very stuff. Now what will we do? We simply plug these demand functions into the budget constraint. So in place of, let me write it here, we have price of X, and in place of X we have this demand function for good X, that is X, which is a function of income and price of good X. Okay, similarly we write price of good Y times the Marshallian demand function for good Y, that is equal to Y, which is a function of income and price of good Y. It should be equal to the income of the consumer. Okay, after that what will we do? We will differentiate both sides by M. Okay, so taking the derivative with respect to M, what will happen here? Price of X will remain, we are taking the partial derivatives with respect to M here. Okay, so price of X is simply Px, and the derivative of this demand function will be change in the X with respect to, due to the change in income. Okay, dx upon dm is the partial derivative of this first term with respect to M, plus price of Y will remain as it is, because we are taking the partials, that is the derivative of this demand function with respect to the income is equal to, so derivative of M with respect to M is del M upon del M. Okay, which obviously will be equal to 1. So here I will write it here 1. Del M upon del M is equal to 1. Okay, I am just saving one step. Now what will we do here? I will, and let me show it here, or let me rewrite this price of X into del X upon del M plus price of Y times del Y upon del M is equal to 1. Okay, what will I do? I will multiply the first term, and let me use this proper color here. Okay, let me multiply the first term by mx upon mx. Okay, so if I cancel them, it will become 1. And similarly, let us multiply the second term by my upon m into y. Okay, so m into y. When I am doing this very stuff, then what will I do? So let me write the price of X as it is times this X. So first I will write this X. Okay, and let me use the color here to make sense. price of x into x, okay, divide by this m, then I am left with this del m, sorry, del x upon del m into this m upon x. I am not using the color properly, so we have this m and this x here, okay. And similarly I will be doing that very stuff here. So we have price of y, then I am writing this y into y, and I am dividing it by m, then I am left with del y upon del m into m upon y, okay, m upon y, and it should be equal to 1. Now here, and let us, I don't have the space, so let me show it here. I am trying to show. So what does this term imply? Price of x times units of x upon m. It simply shows us the share of income that the consumer is spending on good x, and this py into y upon m, that is the proportion of income that the consumer is spending on good y, okay. And here you can see dx upon dm into m upon x. It is actually the income elasticity of demand for good x, and del y upon del m into m upon y. This is the income elasticity of demand for good y, okay. And let me write it here. Here px into x upon m, it shows the proportion of income spent on good x, and this del x upon del m into m upon x, it is the income elasticity of demand for good x, and same thing is true for this and that very stuff. So if I write it in this fashion, so let us denote it by m, let us denote this term by m subscript x, that is the proportion of income that the person is spending on good x, times the income elasticity of good y, let's denote it by e superscript, sorry, with respect to x. So income elasticity of good x plus m subscript y, shows the share of the income that is spent on good y, times the income elasticity of good y, it is equal to 1, okay. This is the Engel aggregation formula, okay, that simply tells us that the share weighted income elasticity of demand sums up to 1. And let me write it here. The share weighted income elasticities of demand is equal to 1, okay. So it simply tells us the fraction of income that is spent on good x times the income elasticity of good x plus the share of income spent on good y times the elasticity of good y should be equal to 1, okay. I hope I make myself clear in this video. Thank you.